The deep sea is like another world, hidden right beneath our feet. It's dark, mysterious, and full of secrets waiting to be discovered. What kind of creatures survive in a place with no sunlight? What bizarre things are hiding miles underwater?
Now we have the story of an artist who uses the ocean as a museum.
Let's dive in as we uncover the weird, the creepy, and the downright jaw-dropping things found in the deep sea. The Eldritch horror of the deep. When you think about the creatures lurking deep in the ocean, you know you're in for some weird sights. With crushing water pressure and no sunlight reaching that far down, marine life has to get really creative to survive. Some grow enormous eyes to catch the tiniest bit of light, while others have squishy bodies to withstand the pressure. But then there are those creatures that leave you scratching your head or shivering in your boots. Is that its head? Its tentacles? Does it even have a head? What is that thing? Back in 2015, a team working on the Serpent project stumbled across something truly bizarre. Using a remotely operated vehicle, they were exploring the waters off the coast of Angola in the South Atlantic Ocean. At a depth of 4,350 feet, they captured footage of what can only be described as a living nightmare. At first, they had no clue what they were looking at. The writhing, twisting mass seemed like it had crawled straight out of a Lovecraftian tale. For a moment, it really seemed like they'd found the spawn of Cthulhu. But after carefully studying the creature, scientists came to a less terrifying conclusion. It wasn't an ancient sea monster or an alien life form, it was a siphonophore. These are colonies of tiny marine organisms that live and work together as one big, creepy unit. What makes them even more unsettling? There's no standard shape or size for a siphonophore colony. They can look wildly different depending on the conditions they're living in. A year before this discovery, in 2014, another team aboard the EV Nautilus made a similarly chilling find off the southern coast of the United States. At about 200 feet below the surface, they spotted yet another siphonophore. This one looked completely different from the one near Angola, but belonged to the same family. Because, of course, one wasn't horrifying enough. These colonies might not actually be Eldritch horrors, but they sure do a great job of looking the part. A chilling doll discovery. The Titanic, with its massive 880-foot-long frame and reputation as an unsinkable ship, has cemented its place in history as the most famous shipwreck ever. But surprisingly, clear evidence of its final resting place wasn't found until 1985, 74 years after it sank beneath the waves. However, a strange clue to its fate surfaced nearly a decade earlier, thanks to a fisherman named Abel Frederico Nogueiras. In 1976, Nogueiras was out on his trawler in the Atlantic Ocean when something unusual happened. As he hauled up his fishing net, he noticed an odd shape mixed in with the catch. Leaning in for a closer look, he froze. Staring back at him was a lifeless face, not human but a porcelain doll's head. The eerie discovery had come from a depth of 6,500 feet below the ocean's surface. At the time, Nogueiras had no idea of the doll's significance, but there was a twist. He had been fishing in the same part of the Atlantic where the Titanic went down. After he died in 1992, his son sold the porcelain head to a doll collector named Teresa Martin. Intrigued, Martin decided to investigate further. Her research revealed something remarkable. Historical records showed that several girls aboard the Titanic had dolls with them. One survivor, Eva Hart, even mentioned in her memoirs that she had to leave her doll behind in her cabin during the chaotic evacuation. Martin also discovered that the doll's manufacturer, Shino and Hofmeister, had produced the exact type of doll Hart had owned back in 1906, the Lost City Beneath the Waves. Back in 1984, marine archaeologist Ehud Galili went diving off the coast of Atlit, Israel, hoping to uncover a shipwreck. While he didn't find any wrecked boats, he stumbled upon something even more extraordinary. About 40 feet below the surface, he spotted the remains of rectangular stone structures, like the outlines of houses. His discovery kicked off a series of underwater excavations that revealed a treasure trove of ancient history. As scientists explored the site, they found human graves, skeletal remains, mysterious water wells that resembled portals, and even 7 massive megaliths arranged in a semicircle. The entire site seemed like an underwater city, frozen in time. When the remains were carbon dated, The results were jaw-dropping. This settlement was around 8,500 years old. To put that in perspective, it's about 400 years older than the pyramids of Giza, and its enormous stone megaliths predate Stonehenge by about 3,500 years. But the big mystery is, why did this ancient city end up underwater? Was it part of some mythical underwater civilization? Not quite. Scientists believe the settlement, called Atlit Yam, was abandoned in a sudden disaster. Research suggests that a catastrophic eruption of Mount Etna in southern Italy triggered a massive tsunami, towering over 130 feet high. The wave likely swept across the Mediterranean coast, swallowing cities like Atlit Yam in just a few hours. It's incredible to think about how advanced this community was, building monumental structures without modern tools, only to be erased by nature in an instant. Perhaps if they'd focused on flood defenses instead of those towering megaliths, history might have turned out differently. Deep-sea lizardfish. Let's talk about one creepy critter, the deep-sea lizardfish. Yeah, this guy is straight out of nightmares. But before you start worrying about meeting one, don't. These 2-foot-long predators live way out of reach, lurking at depths between 2,000 and 11,000 feet in the part of the ocean called the Midnight Zone. Down there, it's almost pitch black all the time, with just the occasional glow from bioluminescent creatures. To survive in such darkness, deep-sea lizardfish have evolved some wild features. Their huge eyes are specially designed to catch even the faintest bit of light, making it easier to spot prey in the inky depths. But their unsettling eyes are nothing compared to their mouths, which are packed with sharp, needle-like teeth. These teeth are perfect for snatching and trapping prey, and they'll eat just about anything that crosses their path, including other lizardfish. But here's where things get really weird. If two lizardfish do meet, there's just as much chance they'll mate as there is one of them becoming dinner. Why? Because all deep-sea lizardfish are hermaphrodites, meaning they have both male and female reproductive organs. In the sparse and lonely world of the deep ocean, this adaptation means they can breed with any other lizardfish they bump into. So yeah, when they play with their food, it might mean something entirely different. Standing strong in the abyss. Let's dive even deeper, down to the abyssal zone, around 15,000 feet below the surface, where we meet one of the strangest creatures in the ocean, the tripod fish. True to its name, this fish literally stands on the seafloor, using 3 long bony projections that extend from its fins. At these depths, where light is non-existent, the tripod fish has adapted in some fascinating ways. Unlike other deep-sea dwellers like the lizardfish, tripod fish don't rely on large eyes to hunt. In fact, their eyes are tiny, only about 1 millimeter across. So how do they catch food in the pitch black? Simple, they've got a clever system. These patient hunters plant themselves on the ocean floor and use their elongated pectoral fins, which hover over their heads like antennae, to sense vibrations in the water. When something tasty swims by, the tripod fish springs into action. Life this far down is pretty solitary, and like other deep-sea creatures, tripod fish have evolved to handle the isolation. They're hermaphrodites, meaning they have both male and female reproductive organs. What's even more impressive, they can self-fertilize, producing offspring without ever needing to meet another fish. Now that's survival at its finest. The bizarre Gulpa Eel. What kind of creature has a mouth big enough to scoop up prey twice its size and a glowing tail that lures victims straight into its jaws? Meet the Gulpa Eel, also known as the pelican eel, a true oddity of the deep sea. Found around 10,000 feet below the surface in the Midnight Zone, this eerie fish is unlike anything else. Its most bizarre feature? That enormous mouth, which looks a lot like a pelican's pouch. Though Gulpa eels are only about 2.5 feet long, their head and jaw make up roughly a quarter of their total size. Their jaws are incredibly flexible thanks to loosely hinged bones and stretchy skin, allowing them to open ridiculously wide. It's like having a built-in net to trap prey larger than themselves. But the surprises don't stop there. At the end of their slender, whip-like tail lies a glowing photophore, a light-producing organ. Through bioluminescence, it emits a bright pink glow, which might seem like a bad way to stay hidden in the deep sea. However, it's a sneaky strategy. The light attracts unsuspecting prey, guiding them right into the Gulpa eel's cavernous mouth. Imagine swimming in the pitch-black depths, drawn toward a mysterious pink light, only to realize too late that it's attached to this deep-sea predator. Spooky, isn't it? One rule for the midnight zone: stay away from glowing lights. The mystery of the giant knife. What would you think if you came across a massive knife-like object while scuba diving? Strange, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to some divers off the coast of Madagascar. In an image that quickly went viral, the divers are seen holding what looks like a colossal blade, easily over 7 feet long if we assume those divers are average-sized adults. So what's the deal with this enormous knife? Theories have been flying all over the internet. Some believe it could have belonged to prehistoric giants from tens of thousands of years ago, possibly used for hunting creatures like the megalodon, a giant shark from the past. It's an exciting idea, but is it true? Probably not. While it's fun to imagine this as an ancient weapon, a more realistic explanation is that it's not actually a knife at all. Many think it's a movie prop that somehow ended up in the ocean. Others suggest it might be part of an aircraft propeller that broke off a sunken plane, or even a rudder or daggerboard detached from a ship. Whatever it really is, it's a fascinating and mysterious find, and it's sure to spark plenty of wild ideas. What do you think? A prehistoric relic, or just an odd piece of wreckage? Sculptures of Granada and Switzerland. Molinare Bay off the coast of Granada may look like a scene from a travel brochure, but what lies beneath the surface is anything but serene. Divers plunging into the calm waters here will quickly find themselves face to face with something far more eerie than they expected. A ghostly collection of life-size sculptures created by British artist Jason de Taylor lurks beneath the waves. These concrete figures, made from casts of the local community, aren't meant to spook. Rather, they aim to connect people with the underwater world in a unique, thought-provoking way. Still, it's hard not to get the chills when you're greeted by such a surreal, haunting sight during a peaceful dive. But hold on, the spooky underwater sights don't stop there. About 4,500 miles north of Molinare Bay, in the dark depths of Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland, lies a true nightmare. At 134 feet below the surface, a massive 16-foot-long shark sculpture waits to send shivers down your spine. Created in 2007 as part of a short film titled Shock au Lac, this terrifying creature was abandoned in the lake after filming wrapped up. Now it sits quietly in the water, surely scaring unsuspecting swimmers who don't know it's lurking below. Swimming in that lake must feel like a real-life horror movie. Can you imagine the shock of diving in, blissfully unaware, only to come face to face with a monstrous shark? Alligator Encounter beneath. Over 6,000 feet below the surface of the Gulf of Mexico, something wild and unsettling awaits. An alligator. And no, it's not a scene from a horror movie. This gator is very real. Imagine being a deep-sea diver cruising through the depths, only to suddenly spot this fearsome predator just hanging out in the deep blue. But here's the twist. Alligators aren't supposed to be down there. Normally found in rivers and lakes, how did one end up 6,000 feet below the ocean? Well, turns out this alligator and 2 others was part of an experiment by marine biologists from Louisiana University's Marine Consortium. The team dropped the gators into the deep sea to see how creatures living at those depths would react to an unusual food source. And what they discovered was even stranger than they could have imagined. One alligator was completely devoured by football-sized isopods in less than 24 hours. Another one was reduced to nothing but bones, with a weird brown fuzz left behind. DNA tests showed this wasn't just some sea gunk. It was a newly discovered species of bone-eating worm. But the most bizarre part, the third alligator disappeared entirely. After being dropped into the depths, only its harness and weight were left behind. When scientists investigated further, they found drag marks leading to the abyss. Something down there had the strength and stomach to drag away an entire alligator, and to this day, no one knows what creature had the power to do it. Turtle Tomb. Diving into the deep blue waters off Sipadan Island in Malaysia, Josh Vergara had one thing on his mind: capturing the breathtaking beauty of marine life. But what he stumbled upon 75 feet underwater was anything but ordinary. Instead of vibrant coral reefs or playful fish, he discovered something that sent a chill down his spine: a cave. But not just any cave. This one, known to locals as the Turtle Tomb, was eerily filled with the skeletal remains of dozens of sea turtles. Now, sea turtles are famously solitary creatures, so how did all these turtles end up in the same underwater graveyard? Some believe they found this cave to quietly pass on in peace. However, the more likely and far less peaceful explanation is that the turtles ventured into the labyrinth-like cave and got lost. Though sea turtles can hold their breath for up to 2 hours, it's thought that they became disoriented and eventually succumbed to asphyxiation. A hauntingly sad and mysterious scene, right? Scary shell. Ever wonder what happens when a critter from the deep sea gets really creative with its shell? Meet the Parapagoras hermit crab, a little crustacean that's out here thinking outside the shell. Unlike most crabs who just snatch up empty snail shells, this one's got a whole different vibe. Instead of playing it safe with a typical seashell, it finds an unexpected partner, a zoanthid, which looks like some kind of alien goo. So how does this work? Well, when hermit crabs are young, they pick up a sea snail shell. But as they grow, something amazing happens. A zoanthid, a creature similar to an anemone, starts to attach itself to the shell. Over time, the zoanthid wraps around the crab's soft abdomen, taking on the role of the shell itself. The result? A bizarre, almost creepy-looking creature that looks straight out of a horror movie. But here's the kicker. It's actually a genius move. The crab avoids the risky business of swapping shells, which leaves it vulnerable for a short time. Instead, the zoanthid's stinging tentacles act as a built-in defense system, scaring off potential predators. Meanwhile, the zoanthid gets a free ride, benefiting from the crab's mobility and access to different parts of the ocean to feed. So, as unsettling as it might seem, it's a win-win for both. A match made in oceanic heaven, even if it looks more like a nightmarish partnership. OnionEyed Grenadier. In April 2023, Roman Fedotsov, a commercial fisherman in the icy waters off Russia's northern coast, was doing what he does best, trawling for cod, paddock, and maybe a lucky mackerel or two. But what he pulled up that day was anything but ordinary. The nets, which can sink as deep as 3,300 feet, often bring up strange deep-sea creatures, but this one was something else entirely. Fedotsov's catch was a creature straight out of a nightmare. Its fleshy pink mouth, scaly body, lizard-like tail, and eyes bulging grotesquely from its head. Naturally, he snapped a picture and shared it online, and soon the theories started to flood in. Was it some rare mutation, a byproduct of pollution wreaking havoc on marine life? It turns out it was neither. This bizarre creature was actually an onion-eyed grenadier, a ray-finned fish that normally resides about 3,000 feet underwater. The fish was perfectly normal for its kind, except for a couple of things. First, the creepy distended mouth, that's not typical. And those bulging eyes, not usually that dramatic either. What happened to this fish was a phenomenon called barotrauma. In the deep depths, the fish's swim bladder, a gas-filled organ that helps it maintain buoyancy, gets compressed by the immense pressure. But when the fish is hauled up too quickly to the surface, that pressure drops and the gas inside expands. This causes its internal organs to puff up, and those freaky eyes and mouth pop out like something from a horror flick. While some might blame pollution for this fish's terrifying appearance, I'm kind of relieved to know it's just nature's weird science at work. Nuclear time bombs of the Barents Sea. The ocean floor is hiding some seriously strange secrets, and not all of them are from nature. Take this viral image that made the rounds online. It shows what looks like a nuclear reactor buried deep in the ocean's sediment. Pretty scary, right? Well, before you panic, it turns out it's just a well-done Photoshop job. But don't relax too quickly, because there's a real problem lurking beneath the waves. Between the 1960s and 80s, the Soviet Union dumped about 18,000 radioactive objects into the sea. And we're not talking about some remote, uninhabited area. This was in the Barents Sea, home to some pretty freaky fish. While many of these objects pose minimal risk, some are increasingly worrying, especially to ecosystems in the northern Russian waters. Among the most dangerous, the nuclear reactors from submarines like the K-11, K-19, K-27, K-140, and K-159, plus the reactor from the Lenin icebreaker. These 6 alone are believed to account for over 90% of the radioactive waste dumped in the Barents Sea. Now, here's the real kicker. Removing these nuclear time bombs from the ocean floor 650 feet deep isn't exactly a walk in the park. It would take specialized equipment, experts, and a ton of manpower. In fact, just removing those 6 reactors could cost nearly $300 million. So yeah, I wouldn't expect these reactors to be going anywhere anytime soon. Marine monster. The deep sea isn't just home to the eerie, endless expanse of water. It's a place full of unsolved mysteries and sometimes nightmares. About 4,000 miles southeast of the notorious deep Barents Sea, you'll find the Pacific Ocean, where something truly spine-chilling was discovered. In 2010, researchers from the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, JAMSTEC, were remotely operating an underwater vehicle, dropping it 1,000 feet down to explore the seabed. At first, it looked pretty standard, just water, rocks, and the usual ocean floor, until things took a terrifying turn. What was that? A demonic sea cow? The Pokemon Mook come to life? Or maybe something even darker? Some people believe what they saw could be the infamous Ningen, a humanoid sea creature from modern folklore. Legend has it that this creature has been spotted near Antarctica, with estimates putting it at 65 to 100 feet long, about the size of a blue whale. Its features are just as disturbing: large, empty eyes and five-fingered hands. While the researchers think it's just a rock covered in barnacles, nothing more than an optical illusion, they couldn't shake the eerie resemblance to the Ningen. The eyes on the creature in the footage? Definitely unsettling, right? So what do you think? Barnacle-covered rock, or a colossal humanoid monster from the depths just waiting for its moment to surface? I know where my bet is: the Magna Squid. Ready for a deep-sea discovery that will leave you questioning everything? Down in the darkest, most mysterious part of the ocean, the Hadal Zone, there's a creature so bizarre that it makes the ocean's other oddities look downright ordinary. This is no internet legend, no Slender Man of the deep, but a real-life mind-bending monster. The Magna Pinna, also known as the bigfin squid. Why is it so wild? For starters, it lives at depths of about 20,000 feet, deeper than most submarines can even go, and much deeper than any human has ever traveled. You're more likely to get to the moon. So if you do somehow find yourself down there, watch out. You might just bump into this ocean oddball, and trust me, it's not something you want to take lightly. Imagine a squid with arms so long they stretch over 26 feet, 3 times the height of an NBA hoop. But it's not just the length that's freaky. The bigfin squid has tentacles that are jointed like elbows, with the long, eerie strands hanging down beneath its body, almost like ghostly appendages trailing through the dark. Now, because these guys live in such remote, crushing depths, they've only been spotted a handful of times. There's still so much we don't know about them, like how they actually hunt. They drag those long, writhing tentacles along the ocean floor, sweeping up whatever unlucky critters cross their path. Another guess is that they just hang out, floating passively, waiting for tiny creatures like zooplankton to get tangled in their tentacles. But whatever their hunting method, one thing's for sure: coming face to face with one of these guys 4 miles underwater would probably leave you with a serious case of the chills. So yeah, deep-sea adventures just got a lot creepier. Each discovery challenges our understanding, reminding us that beneath the waves, the unknown still reigns. Who knows what bizarre creatures we'll find next? Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing deep-sea discoveries.